Thank you for joining me today. My name is Joel Trammell, and I'm CEO and founder of Khorus, a software designed for CEOs by a CEO. Today, we're going to look at a short demo of the Khorus application. We're going to show you how it allows you to align your employees to meet common priorities, engage them in meaningful work, and teach them to predict their results. When you first log into the Khorus application, you'll see the navigation bar that disappears on the left-hand side of the screen. I'm going to start out by showing you the organization. The first thing we do in Khorus is capture the entire organizational hierarchy. This organizational chart is dynamic, so if you click on a name, it recenters around that person's name and position. You can drill down in the organization, and you can even find out information about people by clicking on their View Profile badge on the screen. If I click on View Profile here, that takes me to a screen that has personal information about this employee. They can tie in their LinkedIn profiles. You can go see all their previous jobs and work experience. It ties in if you've done any sort of Myers-Briggs, DISC-based, or in this case, Gallup Strength Finder assessments. The information is displayed along with the employee. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a set of goals. And these can be called goals, priorities, objectives, whatever verbiage you want to use for them. But they're all designed around setting the priorities for the organization and building a playbook, not only for each individual in the company, but building a team playbook to show how everything works together. So if we go to the goals section of the application, I'm logged in at this point as Louise Curtis, who is the CEO of this organization. So Louise's goals and the company's goals are the same. In this case, first goal is to grow revenue by 30%. If I click on that, I'll see the title, grow revenue by 30% year over year. I'll see the description, grow revenue by 30% to 20 million in annual recurring revenue. And finally, the measurement, 20 million in annual recurring revenue. Now, this measurement's very important, and many of our customers get great value by just forcing the management conversation with the employee about have they chose the correct management. So each quarter, the CEO is going to meet with their executive team to establish these priorities for the organization. In this case, we have 6 goals for the organization. We find typically that for most individuals in a company, that 3 to 7 goals are typically the number of goals that are appropriate. But we don't stop at the top of the organization. We build what we call a goal hierarchy. And so if you click here on goal hierarchy, you can see that to grow revenue by 30%, Moses Barnes, our salesperson, decided he needs to close $5 million in new business. Justin Buchanan, our marketing person, has to deliver 1,500 sales qualified leads. We have to renew 3.5 million in expiring subscriptions. And our product person has to develop and execute some go-to-market programs. Now, each of these has goals down in the hierarchy that are tied to them. And so as we move down the hierarchy, depending on the size of the organization, we can go as far down as we need to. Eventually, we'll get to somebody down here at the bottom of the organization, like Kyle Patterson here, who's actually doing work in the organization. So you can see they have a goal of achieving a sales target of 1.5 million in ARR or better. And so what we've done by creating this playbook for the organization is we've aligned vertically all the way from the CEO to the individual contributor at the bottom of the organization. Not only can the CEO be confident that there's a playbook developed to deliver predictable performance for the organization, but the individual contributor can see vertically how they tie into the goals of the CEO. Now, this is of great value to most organizations. Just this planning process alone and capturing this in some way that is transparently visible to the whole organization. What you'll also see after a few quarters is salespeople will start looking to see what the goals of marketing people are, or product people, or other people in the organization. And that starts helping with horizontal alignment across the entire organization as well. Now, once you have the playbook for the organization set up for a given quarter, that's great. But now we want to engage the employees in meaningful work and find out how it's going in the organization. So when I click on an individual goal, you probably notice these squares, colored squares and diamond-shaped forms. And this relates to how we get feedback in the application. And this took me many years of running operations meetings in many companies to really understand what the appropriate questions were for management to ask employees. A lot of people would say, why don't you just send me the raw data? If we're trying to grow revenue, why don't you just send me last week's sales figures? Well, the problem is, in a lot of cases, a salesperson could be 80% to their quota, but not know how they're going to finish the last 20%. Or they could be 20% to their quota and know exactly, have deals to line up and knock out the last 80%. The question I really want to ask is not, where are you in the process? The question I really want to ask is, how likely are you to achieve this goal? Notice the forward-oriented nature of this question. This asks everybody in the organization every week on each of their goals to predict their performance. Khorus is the only software in the world that collects predictions from every employee every week. Now, what's the value of these predictions? Most organizations would just report data to back to the executives in the organization. Well, the problem with data is, by definition, it's historical. It's something that has already happened. If you think about the role of the CEO, Jim Collins uses the analogy of a bus driver for the CEO role. And I think that's a very good analogy. If you're a bus driver and you have the smart aleck kid sit behind you in the first row of the bus, data is like having him sit there and you hit a pothole and he goes, hey, bus driver, you just hit a pothole. Not terribly helpful information. Matter of fact, you probably just want to turn around and smack the kid, right? What you really are going to turn around and say is, next time, why don't you tell me before I hit the pothole? And so that's exactly what this question does across the whole organization. It asks every employee to predict their performance, to anticipate potholes in the organization. And so this is marked on a simple 5-point scale from red to orange to yellow to light green to dark green. Second question we ask, which we think is also very important, is how do you feel about the quality of the work done so far? Feel is the word I really emphasize here. This is what good managers do by walking around the organization, and they'll ask questions to people. Hey, John, how's it going? And if John's a salesperson, maybe he says, I'm going to make my number this quarter, so I'm dark green on the likelihood question, but I've drained my pipeline for next quarter. I've got nothing, so I'm worried, right? And so it gives people a way to signal to management they've got a problem. Or maybe if you're a software developer, you say, hey, we're going to ship the product, but let me tell you, it's held together with duct tape and baling wire, and support better be ready. So this gives the ability for anybody in the organization to raise a red flag to management and say, hey, I've got a problem. And it's very important that management respond when that happens with a thank you. Thank you for letting me know about this pothole before it becomes a big problem and I've hurt the transmission or the suspension. The other input that is allowed but not required is there's a comment field. And so what we say as a best practice is, if you downgrade your status from the previous week, type in, tell me why in the comment field. Obviously, if your status went down from dark green to yellow, something changed, right? And so give me a sentence or two just to tell me why it changed. And that's all each person needs to do to update each of their goals on a weekly basis. So this is very lightweight. It should take a minimum, it should take a maximum of 5 to 10 minutes on a Friday afternoon, typically. The system will prompt every employee with an email to update their records, update their status. And so all the information is then available to the management team when they come in on Monday morning. And that is a wealth of information. So the way we encourage our management teams to engage with the product on a weekly basis is in their operations review meetings. If you click on the predictions matrix here, it pulls up a 2x2 matrix with quality on the vertical axis, likelihood on the horizontal axis. And what we can see here is, for this goal that we were just discussing, growing revenue by 30% with the clear measurement of 20 million in annual recurring revenue, what we can see is there were 70 goals throughout the organization tied to that particular goal. Now, we can also, if we had a particularly large organization and this was maybe 500 goals or something, we have the ability to slice and dice the data so we can only look at the first few levels. But even with 70 goals, it's very easy in our 2x2 matrix to summarize the status of those 70 goals. What we see is 61 of those goals are in a high likelihood, high quality status. That's wonderful. That's great. Outstanding. But as CEO, my eye immediately goes to the bottom left on this graph to see the orange colored dot right here. And this says there's one goal in the low likelihood, low quality status. So I click on that. The system immediately filters to that particular goal. That goal is deliver 1,500 sales qualified leads. I immediately see that Justin Buchanan's the person responsible. So if we're in the ops meeting, I'm going to turn to Justin. I'm going to say, hey, is this going to prevent us from getting to grow our revenue by 30%? If he says no, okay, then that's his problem to go solve. If he says yes, then we're going to have a discussion about how we solve that problem. Now, Justin downgraded his status, so he left us a comment here so I could review that before the meeting. Conversion rates are trending down, currently at 65%, yada, yada. Teams meeting daily to diagnose and figure out what, if anything, we do differently. And so Justin, because he downgraded his status, left us this comment, gives us information to talk about and act on. Now, of course, a lot of people at this point wonder, well, how do we know Justin's going to give us the right information? Why? Is Justin just going to do what a lot of employees might think and say, I don't want to cause any trouble. I'm just going to put green for my status. We'll see what happens at the end of the quarter. Well, that's the beauty of having a system like Khorus in place. It delivers real accountability. And it does that because Justin would have signed up for this goal of delivering 1,500 sales qualified leads at the beginning of the quarter. His manager would have approved that goal. And then each week, Justin would be asked to make a prediction on the likelihood and quality on that particular goal. If Justin every week says it's green, 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 the problem is at the end of the quarter, Justin has to enter the actual result. And his manager has to approve that actual result. So if Justin goes green, 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 and then red, or then doesn't achieve the goal, Justin's what I affectionately refer to as double stupid. Justin's shown that not only could he not accomplish the goal that he signed up for, but he didn't know through all 12 or 13 weeks of the quarter that he wasn't going to be able to accomplish that goal. And that feels very different to people than the previous method, where typically they were just reporting percentage complete, right? And so at the beginning of the quarter, they'd go, I'm 10% done, I'm 20% done, I'm 30% done, I'm 50% done, I'm 70% done. Sorry, boss, I didn't get done. With that method, there is no personal accountability. They're leaving it up to management and basically saying, if 50% wasn't far enough along, you should have said something to me. With the Khorus system, we're asking every employee to make a prediction and then managing them and holding them accountable to that prediction. I've taught a CEO class for over a half dozen years here in Austin. And the number one thing I hear CEOs tell me is, how do I make my employees more accountable? And so this system really drives that home. You'd go to the next goal then that's in a low quality, low likelihood state. Click on that. Okay, it's another one around leads, generate 2,000 tier one leads. We have a discussion about that. Great. And then we can move on. What's the next goal that we were agreed upon as the executive team to accomplish? Deliver world-class customer satisfaction, improve our NPS score from 35% to 40%. Okay, let's look at that. Well, obviously, again, 26 are in great shape, 12 are also in good shape. But what about these 4 down here, especially this one at the bottom in low likelihood, low quality? Let's click on that. Let's have a discussion. And so not only does this provide a way to look at the input from all the goals, but it provides a workflow at every level of the organization. Because while I'm demonstrating this as if I'm the CEO of this organization, every level, every management level can look at their own set of goals and the goals beneath them and carry on this same process of investigating where the predictions are and where the quality is each week. And so one of the ways to look at Khorus is it puts in a consistent management system across the entire organization. Now, this is unique. We're the only company in the world that is collecting this predictive information from every employee and allowing you to run the organization based on these results. Another thing that's unique about Khorus is then at the end of the quarter, what we can do with that information. So now we go to the end of the quarter and we click, and let me get to the Q2 of 2017 where we have some demo data here. And at the end of the quarter, every manager can go in and click on their employee and hit start appraisal. And that information then is brought up about each of the goals they were working on, how they completed those goals, how they predicted those goals through the entire quarter. And after many years of running organizations, it became apparent to me that typical performance management systems didn't work. But it took me a long time to figure out why they didn't work. And the reason most performance management systems didn't work is because the data they're using to manage the employee is either made up by the manager, made up by the employee, or made up by a group of employees that work with that particular person. And what is clear is that's not the same data we're using to run the company. With Khorus, when you have a management conversation, a performance management conversation with the employee, you're using the exact same data to run the business as you are to coach the employee. We're the only system in the world that's allowing you to do that. Run the business with the same set of data that you're using to coach the employee. We think that's a critical difference. After you walk through each of their goals, you can make whatever comments you want at the bottom. This is routable to the employee, signable. The employee gets a record. The manager signs it. It establishes a record for HR, and every quarter we've had a coaching and performance conversation. And so again, you can see we're putting in a consistent management system across the organization. All of the information that I've showed you so far would be shared with the employee. If you go down below, there's a performance rating also. And this information is put in, this is the default information, rating versus performance and potential. Paying customers, we allow to customize this part of the review process. And they can choose some people like to use performance versus values or other criteria. But in this case, we're using performance versus potential. We've defined each of the 3 criteria, A, B, and C, and potential, high, medium, and low. And so the manager merely would select, Helen's an A performer with medium potential, whatever the case may be, and hit save appraisal. Now, the beauty is this is happening across the entire organization. And so that gives the ability for the CEO to go in and look across the entire organization and see what their talent profile is across that whole organization. And it allows for any manager to look at the talent profile across their part of the organization as well. So in this organization with 105 employees, I can see for this past quarter, I had 15 employees that were rated with high potential, high performance. That's wonderful. Those are the people I want to be making sure we're paying them right, making sure maybe I send a thank you note or take them out to lunch. I can see here that there are 6 employees that were rated low performance, low potential. We need to have a plan for what we're going to do with those, and then everything in between, right? And so we can do effective performance management across the entire organization. People for most organizations are by far the most valuable assets. It's where we spend most of our money, but most organizations don't have a regular process for managing the performance of their people. Khorus gives you that. It's just part of running the business. Several other pieces I'd like to point out on Khorus today. One is the strategy module. This allows you to publish your strategy by answering some simple questions that are pre-configured in the product. So first, we ask you about mission, vision, and values. And then we have a set of 10 strategy questions. You can answer as few or as many of those as you want. At any time, you can edit the answers to those questions, make changes, whatever the case may be, hit publish the changes, and you're back with an accurate and up-to-date strategy document that every employee can access at any time. Often when I go into companies and ask, what's your strategy? Or if I was a new employee, how would I find out your strategy? And you find out that maybe the CEO gave a speech 6 months ago on this strategy. Maybe it was a great speech, but now things have changed or the employee doesn't have access to that and people don't know where to look. And so this gives a common place for every employee to go find the strategy of the organization. When I go to the Khorus homepage, you'll see several features that are designed to make Khorus rollouts easier to manage. Just like any system that drives a new process, you'll want to make sure as you roll out the system that employees are setting goals in the system, that they're updating their weekly predictions in the system. And so you can see at the bottom right here on the employee compliance data, any week you can look at your direct reports, or you can look at the entire organization as well. But normally you're going to be, as a manager, looking at your direct reports, seeing making sure that everybody has goals in the system and that everybody has updated their weekly predictions. If they haven't, I can click on the not updated bar here. It brings me up a list of the people who haven't updated their goals, and I can click on the envelope in order to send a quick email and let people know that, hey, it's important that we get your information every week, and so please update your goals as soon as possible. Okay. Back to the home screen. Again, you'll have a set of reminders on the left that shows you activities to complete in Khorus, whether it be updating your goals or making approvals for your employees. Every time an employee changes a goal, it's going to be sent to the manager, their direct manager, for approval. And when they finalize the result, it'll be sent for the manager for approval as well. At the end of the quarter, you'll get a reminder on appraisals that need to be completed. And then when appraisals need to be signed, you'll be getting another reminder. It's important to remember that Khorus is built for running an organization. This is not an HR system or an individual performance system. This is designed to be used by the CEO and executive leadership team to drive a common vision and alignment in the organization. If you have any more questions, please contact me, Joel, at Khorus, and thanks for listening today.